Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Biblio Fitness. Hope everyone's had a great day, made some beautiful gains today. Today, I did want to speak about section 343 of the Dawn of Day, which is titled A Moral Pretense. I'm going to go ahead and read it real quick. Quote, "You refuse to be dissatisfied with yourselves or to suffer from yourselves, and this you call your moral tendency. Very well. Another may perhaps call it your cowardice. One thing, however, is certain, and that is that you will never take a trip around the world, and you yourselves are this world, and you will always remain in yourselves an accident and a clod on the face of the earth. Do you fancy that we who hold different views from you are merely exposing ourselves out of pure folly to the journey through our own deserts, swamps, and glaciers, and that we are voluntarily choosing grief and disgust with ourselves like the Stylites?" End quote. So, I guess this is like against the call of adventure, as some, like to say. You refuse to be dissatisfied with yourselves or to suffer from yourselves. I feel like that's really a thing with religion, right? Like, I guess that's always the argument, is because when you look at a notion such as something like destiny or preordained paths and the like, and you subscribe to that sort of shit, you really kind of do lose or offset the responsibility of dissatisfaction with yourself, because everything has been preordained, right? Like, we are follies and accidents because the world itself is a giant error because of the whole, Adam and Eve thing, eating from the tree of knowledge. And we are born with original sin, and there's no saving us. It's just who we are, right? And in that acceptance of fate in a very fucked up, weird way, because now you're displacing responsibility on your ancestors, and it's, only to the glory of God. So it becomes a lot more simplified, in my opinion, this worldview, right? That is the whole point. And those sort of people look at those who want to be adventurous, who want to go through the glaciers and the swamps and the deserts and find out about the world and see what's going on and see the monuments, see different views, as folly, because everything is already laid out. What is the point? Why would you want to go over there and suffer when the answer is already there? You know what I'm saying? That's the conundrum, right? Why would you want to go out and look for more answers when the answers are technically already there? Everything's already set out for you. The truth has been revealed, right? And that's one of the biggest problems with something like Christianity, that gave or allowed the delusion of gave or allowed everyone to live with the delusion that they have access to the truth without any work involved, right? It's not like before with Plato, for example. Like, even though he calls something like Christianity, obviously, but Plato, in searching of the truth, required discipline, required work, required learning and reading and figuring out oneself, in order to escape from the cave, right? That famous analogy of escaping from the cave and no longer looking at the shadows of what actually is going on, the whole separation between the phenomenal and the noumenal world. But then when you came to Platonism for the people, Platonism for the masses, that work was extirpated as from the requirements to access the truth. All you have to do was believe in God. And so the journey itself, right, the ordeals, the labor that is going to be, the intensive, monumental labor that is going to be required in order to achieve or acquire this so-called truth, was no longer necessary for people. And, that gave us a sense of arrogance, and that is one of the biggest oxymorons in this entire endeavor, is that, we're not, because, like, look at Immanuel Kant, right? That his whole critique of reason is basically putting changing up the lexicon and justifying it this in the now more secularized world of the Age of Enlightenment in Germany, to justify Christianity by saying that we have limitations on our cognitive reasoning abilities, right? That we are victims of our sensory organs, therefore we are subject to their limitations, and we'll never be able to see the world for what it really is. But if that's the case, then how can we possibly ever even know that there's such a thing as a world outside? Or if there was a world outside, how could we possibly be able to interpret the message that is being brought down from on high if our reason or our ability and logic will not be able to discern it? Because if we are able to discern it, there would be no separation. There would have already been a union, right? But then, coincidentally, only very specific people have had divine inspiration, and you have to listen to them. But, people don't really take that into account. It's really stupid of people. And I was just having that conversation with my coworker yesterday, and I was just like, dude, if you at this point are religious, it's not even because of you believing it's true. It's more of a coping mechanism, but that's beside the point. It's another subject that I would like to talk about in another section, so I'll leave it there. But there is that contrast. Let me go back to that page real quick so I can reference that. But and they always do that, right? Like, those sort of people that have already believed that this is how the world is. I just have to follow these certain rules, and there's nothing more to it. There's an ease in being dogmatic. And there's no work involved, and that just really coincides with how we are. We're becoming more and more lazy, and in that laziness we also inflate our arrogance. A lot of us walk around believing that we are the paradigm of truth and virtue, when we may not think of it that way, but when we see the actions enabled by another individual, we are so quick to judge and call them stupid, or they're doing the wrong thing, or you should be doing this, as if what's the correct thing to do. And obviously that rings a lot with Stoicism, with Epictetus, for example, that he's like, dude, if you're not going to teach them, then shut the fuck up, because you've been there before and you've made dumb decisions. So, but there is that risk. And I guess this really goes into his whole, like, when you get down to the nitty gritty, this separation of old school and new school, or religion and realpolitik, or immorality, I guess morality, right? Morality, this voice of the herd, the voice of the masses, telling you that this is how things are, and if you go contra to it, you are a villain, you are evil. But then if you look at history, the only people that are able to make any difference or able to move civilization along started off as heretics. Even Jesus started off as a heretic, did he not? Against the Jewish faith. He was just, for the most part, seen as some offshoot, extremist Jewish sect trying to revolt against the power of the Roman Empire. But give it enough time, and Mr. Paul and Peter, well, mainly Peter, right? It's mainly Peter's rhetoric, not Jesus, but give it enough time and it became something else, right? He no longer became a pariah. He no longer became a holy fool. He became the new paradigm of morality. But how did he start? As an immoralist. All morals start as immoral, because that's the only way that you get things along. But people always forget that that requirement, right? And that's why, all of us will always be subservient to someone else, because we're so stupid. And we don't think of shit like that. We just want to obey, because there's a comfort in obeying. There's fear. There's a sense of agony that we don't want to confront in this call to adventure. And that's what it is, right? That's what Nietzsche calls for. Not a delusional call to adventure where you're going and trying to find out about yourself, but within the rules, within the boundaries placed upon you. And of course, a justifiable rebuttal to such things is that we are historical beings, and we do require the ideology and the foundations laid before us in order to progress. That's obviously true. We can't work in a vacuum. But that's why we have to go across the swamps. That's why we have to go across the glaciers, because there's just not one way of looking at things, right? Everything is regionalized. Everything is relative. And you have to be able to make that distinction in order to progress, right? We can't be thinking that the truth is universal and our versions or our ways of what our definitions of liberty and truthfulness and honesty and all these hoopla banners are universal, that they go across all spectrums, and that's just not the case, right? Everybody goes down to different conclusions based upon their environments. And if you want to really take advantage of the globalization of culture in the world, especially now is more imperative than ever to branch out and to look around, and because that's how you can move up ahead, not fall into the trappings of specialization or going from one religion or one philosophy to another, but being able to look at all of them and take piecemeal what works for you, because at the end of the day, it's relative. So you might as well use what is advantageous for you. And I'm not saying to, like I said, have a myopia of vision and only go with shit that coincides with each other. No, contrasting, divergent opinions. That is what is required in order to even substantiate your own arguments, right? You have to be able to look at it the other side and find the holes in your argument in order to make it stronger. But you have to be willing to go out on that adventure. You have to be willing to freeze. You have to be willing to suffer and in the heat and be alone. But we can't stand being alone nowadays. How many of us really truly know the virtue of loneliness, right? We look at loneliness now as something to be resented, something that we need to run away from. And I think I've spoken about this in previous videos, but it's only through isolation that you can grow. It's only through isolation. It's only through that loneliness, being able to be alone with your thoughts. But that's a very dark place to go to now, isn't it? And people don't want to embrace that. And I feel like, but in that isolation, revolutionary ideas take hold, right? And that's why you have all these dystopian books like 1984, like Animal Farm, like A Brave New World, and that if you're alone, then that's kind of antisocial. Like, why would you want to be alone? Why would you not be around the crowd? Because the psychology of the masses, my apologies, guys, but because it's a lot easier to take control of people when they're in groups, right? It's very difficult to convince people in isolation, but it's very easy to get people riled up when they're all huddled together. You just gotta ask, Mr. Mustache that hailed from Austria and somehow ruled Germany in the 20th century. He was able to get people going because of mass psychology, taking advantage of emotions, taking advantage of, we are sheep. We band together really well. We don't like to be ostracized. We don't like to be different. And that's one of the biggest hypocrisies with even sometimes with myself that I found, is that when I'm by myself, all I do is clown the crowd. But then I would go to the crowd and hang out with the crowd, and I would just act just like them. You know what I'm saying? And I would go and be a fool and act like a fool and participate in the same actions as everybody else. And yet I had the audacity to look down. You know what I'm saying? We tend to do that, do we not? We really do walk around with antithetical values and convictions, and just go hand in hand with whatever is most convenient. But yet we want to turn around and say the truth is clear and cut, when not even to us the truth is clear cut. But I do like these sort of little sections, because that sort of moral pretense is the arrogance, right? To believe that you hold the truth and it's in your hands because someone told you to. You feel like you never needed to explore. Like the world, like you are the center of the world. Like the world is you and there's nothing more to explore. It's pretty fucking stupid. But, people don't like to be confronted with lies, or people don't like to be confronted with new ideas, because it causes you to have doubt. But doubt is what is required for reason. Civilization started because of doubt. Like the famous adage of Socrates, right? I know that I know nothing. That's doubt. Reason came from doubt. Logic came from doubt. So doubting in the world around us, like, are things really how they appear to be, right? So I like these sort of sections. I love this man. He's fucking lit. But that'll be all for today. Your boy's starving. I just got back from the gym. I had a great session. Great start to another great day, really. So gotta get that food in. Gotta get my peanut butter jelly sandwiches. That's really a staple. Like, if you're a hard gainer, gotta eat your peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Those are calorie dense, a lot of protein, a lot of fats, a lot of carbs. All you need, really. And it's cheap. Everything's really expensive right now. But whatever. Let's not get into that either. So thank you all for watching again. I hope you all make some beautiful gains and have a great weekend. I'll see you again very shortly. So love y'all. Until next time. Peace.